I'm very happy to have the opportunity to share with you about Bhutan and about gross national happiness. And as you know, all stories always start with once upon a time there was a king. So my story also starts with once upon a time there was a king in a faraway kingdom beyond 7 seas and 7 mountains. And this king was a very wise king. And because he was a very wise king, he cared deeply for the happiness and the well-being of his people, which is, I guess, what all leaders should care about. So I will start by sharing a little bit about Bhutan as a country, its culture, a little bit about Bhutanese royal family, and then I'll move on to share with you about what is gross national happiness. And I will also try to show how the fundamental ideas of gross national happiness can also apply somewhere else, not only in Bhutan, but maybe even here in Germany. And I will give you a few practical examples how we have implemented gross national happiness outside of Bhutan. So that's what I want to share with you today. So it's a transformative learning journey to Bhutan, the country of happiness, or rather of gross national happiness. So, as I said, it all begins with a wise king. So on the right side, you see the 4th king of Bhutan, who was crowned in 1972, and who was the father of gross national happiness, and I will tell you more about it. And between 1972 and 2006, he was the absolute monarch. It was an absolute monarchy. But then, because he was a wise king, he understood that actually it was wiser to give the power to the people rather than to keep it to himself. And therefore, he abdicated. He was in his 50s, hugely popular, and crowned his son, which is the current king, the 5th king, to become the 5th king of Bhutan in a constitutional monarchy. So like England or Norway or Sweden, where the king is more just a symbol and not anymore the holder of power. And so this is the 5th king of Bhutan, and this is the lovely queen of Bhutan. So as you can see, they are something of a fairy tale couple. And now they have a little 3-year-old young prince, which is taking everybody's heart in Bhutan. So one thing about Bhutan is its unique system, which I will describe in more details. The second very important aspect is a pristine nature. Bhutan has the only 7,000 meters summits in the world that have never been climbed, much to the dismay of mountain climbers, because the Bhutanese believe that the peaks, the summits, are the abode of the gods, and people should not disturb them, which sounds strange here in the West, but is really part of Bhutanese culture, this feeling that actually nature is alive. The mountains, the rivers, the lakes, the forest are not just things that we can use and abuse, they are actually living beings. And so you have this amazingly beautiful, pristine nature, and Bhutan is the only country in the world that is not only carbon neutral, but carbon negative. So it means it captures more carbon, CO2, than it produces CO2, because it has pledged in its constitution to remain always with at least 72% of forest coverage. And today it has over 72%. Next to the nature, you have an amazing culture. Bhutan is one of the few Asian countries that has never been colonized. And you know, when colonization happened, what happened was the local culture, the local tradition, the local religion, the local spiritualities were dismissed as being superstitious, old-fashioned, had to be overcome because progress and modernity was coming in. But because Bhutan was never colonized, they really kept their traditional Buddhist culture alive, completely alive. And this is one of the very famous examples. It's called Tiger's Nest, or Taksang in Tsongkha. And Tiger's Nest is one of the very holy, sacred monasteries in Bhutan. And when you see it, it's really built on a steep cliff, and it goes very far down. It's like almost unbelievable when you see it with your eyes when you're there and you realize how on earth could they build that, because there's no road coming up there. Until the 60s, it was wooden ladders. So it's like almost miraculous. But that shows the depth, the intensity of the devotion of the Bhutanese people towards their culture. And this is something very typical for Bhutan. It's called a Sechu. It's like a traditional festival. And when there are these festivals, people come from all over the country, from the countryside, from the mountains, and gather together for big celebrations that are at the same time religious, spiritual, but also an opportunity for the community to meet and to strengthen community vitality. This is another landmark of Bhutan, of Thimphu, that's in the capital city, Thimphu. This is the highest sitting Buddha in the world. And when I took this picture, it was an event where for 3 months there was ongoing recitation, prayers going on, and thousands of people coming from everywhere to attend this celebration. That's in the same place. You have this like thousands and thousands of monks gathering, praying together. And that's an example of the kind of events that you can witness there. So these are called mask dances. The dancers are wearing masks. The dancers are monks. This is a religious ceremony. And they are describing various parts of the traditional spiritual history or myth of Bhutanese or Buddhist tradition. This, for instance, is a depiction of a certain, the whole celebration depicts the life after death until rebirth. As you might be aware of, in the Buddhist tradition, we believe in rebirth. And so according to the Buddhist holy sacred text, once a person dies, there's a kind of a journey between the moment of death until the moment of rebirth. And what happens during this time is described in a book called the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And what is described as this journey of consciousness between death and new birth is like depicted in forms of dances during these festivals. So that's a typical way people will dress for a festival. These are the traditional, what the girls are wearing, it's all a kira. As you see, it's amazingly beautiful hand-woven material, handed down usually from mother to daughter and hand-woven at home. And then, of course, on day of celebration, they wear their most beautiful kira. So this is kind of like a big cloth that is wrapped in a special way, and then they have this sort of blouse and a jacket. And this is me in traditional Bhutanese man's clothes, which is called a go, also hand-woven material. And the interesting thing is that Bhutan is one of the few places where almost everybody still wears traditional dresses every day, not only for celebrations, but every day. Because when you go to office or when you go to school or to university in Bhutan, you are expected to wear your traditional dress, which makes up for a very impressive kind of image. Because, you know, like most of the rest of the world has become very uniform, right? Everybody's wearing jeans and a t-shirt and stuff like that with some kind of funny logos. But in Bhutan, people still have their traditional clothes, and this is really very, very beautiful. And this is a picture of my family as they came to visit me in Bhutan. This is my daughter and my son-in-law, my grandchildren, my wife who's sitting back there. And this is the Princess of Bhutan, who's the president of the Gross National Happiness Center, where I worked for the past 70 years. So that's a Bhutanese palace, the inside of a Bhutanese palace. So that's kind of to give you first a kind of a feeling about the country and its culture and what you might see there. And now I would like to move on and describe a little bit Bhutan's unique development philosophy, which is called gross national happiness. And it all started that's the fourth king that you saw as a ripe man, as a mature man, that he was 70, he was about 20 there. And he ascended the throne when he was 17. And he knew that he didn't really know what he should do. You know, his father had passed away suddenly. He was ascending the throne. He had absolute power and really didn't know what he should be doing. So what he did, he started walking around the country for about 2 years, listening to the people. And, you know, like listening to the people, that's very, very deep wisdom, because most of our leaders don't listen. They tell us, but they don't listen. But he was listening. And through this listening, he came to the insight that actually everybody wants the same thing. Everybody wants to be happy. You might define happiness in different ways. You might have different ideas, what will make you happy. But basically, a fundamental human aspiration is to be happy and to avoid suffering. So he thought, okay, so if what everybody in my kingdom wants is to be happy, how can I promote happiness and well-being as the very central mission of my government? And this is what he did. And once he was asked, it was actually in Mumbai airport by an Indian journalist who asked him a little bit like sarcastic, you know, but what's the GDP of your country anyway? Because like Bhutan is a very small country, GDP of Bhutan is very small. So like, it was like, oh, come on. It was like, you know, like dismissing, you know, oh, but what's your GDP? And the king famously answered, for me, gross national happiness is more important than gross domestic product. And that was the beginning of the idea of gross national happiness, just in one sentence, meaning that, of course, GDP, which is economic growth, is important, but GDP is not a goal in itself. Economic growth is not a goal in itself. Profit is not a goal in itself. Money is not a goal in itself. The goal is we want to increase our happiness, our well-being. Why do we want money? Because we want to live a more comfortable life. We want our family to be safer. We want to be able to give our children a better future. Of course, for that we need money. But the goal is not the money. The goal is the well-being, my own well-being, the well-being of my loved ones, of my family. So that was his fundamental vision. And that was in 1972. Then it took decades to, okay, that's a very nice idea, but it's a kind of very abstract idea. How do you implement that in the reality of the government of a country? So the coming decades was about trying to implement that as a way to govern a country. And I would like you to hear the former Prime Minister of Bhutan, who was the first democratically elected Prime Minister of Bhutan, and he will explain us in just a few minutes what GNH, or gross national happiness, in German Bruttonationalglück, is about.
GNH, or gross national happiness, is the philosophy that had guided Bhutan's development process for about now 40 years. It is based on the belief that development must serve a purpose, that development's role is not simply to promote continuous and limitless economic growth, which is what GDP or the conventional economic models tend to do. And that again, within a finite environment, within a finite world, there are bounds within which growth can take place. Natural, social, resources, and so forth. And so G&H is based on the belief that development must be human-centered, and that its objective must be to create those conditions that will enable the human individual to achieve what is most important to him. And that happens to be happiness. And then again, happiness, we believe, is a condition that can be attained when one is able to balance the needs of the body with those of the mind, the physical and the mental needs being balanced. And likewise, the balance between the spiritual needs of the human individual and the material needs. And so it is a human-centered, holistic, sustainable, and inclusive development approach. Now more and more people who are dissatisfied with the result of pursuing an economic development that is no longer seen to be sustainable, they are seeing G&H as an alternative development paradigm.
So for a number of years, this idea of gross national happiness was considered being something of a utopia, you know, something for this little kingdom far away, didn't really have much to do with what's actually going on in the world, with the big powers, the big economic systems, and so on. But after the 2008 financial crisis, it changed, because many people realized that there's something deeply unsustainable with the way we are conducting our economy. And so the then Secretary General of the UN, Ban Ki-moon, asked Jigme Tinley, the Prime Minister of Bhutan, to present gross national happiness at the UN, and that was at the 2011 UN General Assembly, telling that, so Ban Ki-moon said, I think we need to rethink our development paradigm. And maybe the ideas of gross national happiness can help us rethink our development paradigm. This led to a resolution, July 2011, where the UN General Assembly passed a resolution called Towards Happiness and Well-being, Happiness and Well-being Towards a New Development Paradigm. And that led then to another big conference in 2012 that played an important role in defining the so-called Sustainable Development Goal, SDGs, 17 Sustainable Development Goals, that are now defining the further development of the world. So we see that this tiny little kingdom had quite a strong impact even on the international community. So in a nutshell, really in a nutshell, because G&H is quite a complex and intricate kind of theme, but in a nutshell, the idea is that in order to have good governance, you need to look at to have a good development policy, you need to look at 4 aspects that are equally important. The first one is, of course, economic development. But this economic development has to be equitable, so not so that a very tiny portion of population gets a huge benefit and the majority remains in abject poverty. So it has to be equitable, and it has to be sustainable. It means we have to think of future generations, our children and our grandchildren. The way we live now, we are actually putting future generations at risk. So, of course, we need economic development, but it has to be equitable and sustainable. Then we need, so that's this one up there. Then we need to preserve and enhance our culture, because as humans, we are not only economic beings, we are not only about producing and consuming, we are also creative beings. So arts, science, spirituality cannot be reduced just to economic factors. They have to have a life of their own. And the more vibrant the culture, the more the society has a possibility to evolve and transform and meet the changing challenges of our world. The third one is conservation of the environment, which is an obvious one. As you know, we are facing severe ecological crisis, so any decision that we take as a government, as a company, as an individual, should take into consideration what will be the impact on the environment. And lastly, good governance, because in the end, it is the governance that gives the overall direction, and good governance means, do the leaders actually have happiness and well-being of everyone in mind whenever they take decisions? So that's what we call the 4 pillars of G&H. But then, when the king said to me, or to us as Bhutanese, gross national happiness is more important than gross domestic product, many people said, but gross domestic product is a measurement system. And gross national happiness is kind of a vision, an ideal. It's a bit romantic. It's nothing concrete. And so Bhutan decided to start to measure. And the big question is, can you measure happiness? So the idea is that, well, you cannot measure happiness itself, but you can measure those conditions that are conducive to creating the environment in which everyone can thrive and achieve their highest happiness potential. So we have 9 domains. Living standards is an obvious one. It's like, okay, we need money to live. But education, health, psychological well-being, and I think the gentleman who spoke before me spoke a lot about psychological well-being as a basis of health. So psychological well-being being a very important indicator, and you know that in rich countries like Germany, burnout, stress is a huge problem. How come? The country is so rich, but still many people are not really that happy. So you see, there's no correlation between income and happiness, right? So what brings psychological well-being? Cultural resilience, community vitality, very important, because we know that a very important factor of well-being is the quality of human relationships, right? Love and friendship is still some of the most important components of human life. So the community of vitality, the trust that I have in my neighbors, in the people I live with, the quality of the connections I have, that plays a very important role. Time use, that's very interesting, because when we speak of stress, what's stress? Stress is I have no time. I'm running after my life. So the way we use our time is a very important indicator, and whether we feel that our life is balanced time-wise. Then ecological diversity and good governance. So these are the 9 domains that we actually measure in Bhutan every 3 years in a survey to assess whether the happiness level or the conditions for happiness are good enough in the country. But then, when we speak of happiness, what are we speaking about? That's the question that people always ask me. Okay, but you speak about happiness, but what are you actually speaking about? Everybody has another idea of what happiness is about. So I would like to give you a few ideas about that, what we consider, from the point of view of gross national happiness, to be happiness. So let me quote His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who's, of course, even here well known, who says, if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. So you see, there's this idea that actually the state of mind in which I am is a very central determines to a very central, in a very central way, my happiness and well-being, and that positive states of mind like compassion, generosity, altruism, contentment, and so on and so forth, are the very foundation of happiness. So we could say there's two dimensions of happiness. There's the outer condition, which is the environment, the right, the conducive environment, and there's the inner condition. And I heard the Indian gentleman who spoke before me speak quite a lot about it. He spoke extensively about contentment, right? So contentment is one of those inner qualities leading to happiness. I'll show you a little video on that theme.
The message that I'd like to share about gross national happiness is that it's not just about Bhutan, and that it's not just about happiness in a very superficial way. It's really about the deep-seated causes of happiness and well-being that come from living in harmony with nature, in harmony and balance with others around you, and really being in touch with yourself and your own wisdom. That transcends any culture or country boundary, and it's really central to our own personal happiness and to, I think, our survival as a planet.
G&H is a kind of a medicine, if you want, for the illness of our times. The first message of G&H, I believe, is reconnecting with our natural environment in such a way that we acknowledge, respect, and value the sacredness of all life forms and our interconnectedness with all life forms. The second crisis that we are facing as a mankind is an economic crisis, which is actually more of an ethical, of a moral crisis than an actual economic crisis. Therefore, we see a rising inequality not only between North and South, but even within rich societies. So the second message is about creating a caring economy, an economy that is based on values like altruism and compassion and collaboration, solidarity, rather than competition and destruction of the environment. The third message of G&H, I believe, is reconnecting with ourselves, with our deepest or highest potential, with our deepest values. Because a lot of the dissatisfaction and meaninglessness that we experience in modern life is the direct consequence of this disconnection with ourselves.
I think one reason that gross national happiness has come into the spotlight in a global way right now is because there's a collective sense that things aren't working. I don't think we would be so interested in happiness if we weren't really feeling unhappy with a lot of things right now. So I think what G&H offers is not just a cosmetic stick-on band-aid solution to just tweak the system a little bit. It's really questioning, why have we been chasing GDP and economic growth at all costs? And can we not balance that and look at happiness and well-being of all life as a reason and the center for development?
So one of the dimensions of happiness that we have been practicing a lot is mindfulness. And I know that even here in Europe, including in Germany, the mindfulness movement has become pretty much mainstream. is not seen as something very exotic or strange anymore. And I guess one of the reasons is because we are subjected to so many constant distractions. Our lifestyle is so fast, so we constantly receive new inputs. And it's really not easy to come back to ourselves and simply slow down and reconnect with ourselves. And I truly believe that this slowing down and coming back to ourselves is really the precondition that we need in order to achieve any kind of inner balance, inner peace, inner stability that is the very foundation of happiness. So if you allow me, I would like to guide you through a very short exercise. So bear with me, and I would like to invite you to join. So I would like to invite you to, for just a few minutes, sit a little bit forward, so don't slouch, but sort of sit a bit forward and try to feel your 2 feet on the floor and your back is upright yet relaxed. So I will invite the bell and then I will guide you. So, although our surrounding is a little bit noisy, can you manage to bring your attention back to your body first of all? Feel your feet as they are on the ground, and feel the weight of your body on the chair. Our back is upright yet relaxed. And we try to become aware of our whole body. How do I feel right now in my body? Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral? Is there pain anywhere, tensions, or am I relaxed? Am I tired or wide awake? So I simply notice how I feel in my body right now. When I'm aware of my body, I become aware of my breathing. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. So I'm aware of my body, I'm aware of my breathing. I hear there are many sounds around me, but I don't fight these sounds. I just acknowledge there is noise. But if I don't react to it, it doesn't disturb me, and I can come back to the awareness of my body and my breathing. As I become aware of my breathing naturally becomes deeper. And my breathing naturally becomes slower. So as I breathe in, I can think deep. And as I breathe out, I can think slow. Deep. Slow. Breathing in, I'm aware of my body. Breathing out, I let go any tension in my body. Aware of the body, breathing in. Letting go of tensions, breathing out. Breathing in, I'm aware of the present moment. Breathing out, I know it's a wonderful moment. Present moment, wonderful moment. Thank you. So let us continue. So mindfulness exercises is not only something that you can do only in Asia or in Buddhist countries. This is a picture of teenagers here in Germany. I often give courses in schools, high schools, and businesses. So that was a group of teenagers in Bayern, actually. And you can see how peaceful and tranquil these young people look. Although, you know, teenagers sometimes, not always peaceful and tranquil, which is fine, but they can, and they actually also enjoy it. Okay. So that was a bit of an overview. Now I would like to share with you how GNH, gross national happiness, can also be implemented in business. So for instance, I've been implementing gross national happiness in a large corporation in Thailand, Bgrim, actually a originally German family that moved to Thailand and created a very big $2 billion company. Mainly electricity and transport and health. And also with Eileen Fisher. Some ladies here might know Eileen Fisher. It's more like a upscale clothing company for ladies. And they have implemented gross national happiness so as to become a fully circular economy business, meaning no waste. And in the garment industry, it's very difficult. And BT's Vietnam, which is the largest Vietnamese shoe company, these are BT shoes, 20 million pair of shoes a year. That has become a completely sustainable green GNH company. Or SEG in Switzerland, which is the company that provides electricity and water and waste management for the city of Geneva. So these are examples of companies that have implemented gross national happiness. This, for instance, was the signing ceremony of the GNH Memorandum of Understanding between the CEO of Bgrim and GNH Center. This is the princess, myself. So that's when we started implementing this project. And after implementing GNH, they redefined their mission and vision as a company, and now it's doing business with compassion for the development civilization in harmony with nature. And these are not just words. They actually implement this vision in their company. For instance, now they have become the largest solar electricity provider for the whole of Southeast Asia. Now, a second field where we are developing GNH, or gross national happiness, is in the field of education. Because we believe that if we want to bring about, change in culture, the two strongest leverage points are business and education. Business because it has the power, and education because it is the future. And these are just examples of institutions where we have implemented GNH. In Vietnam, we are implementing a program called Happy Schools with the Ministry of Education in all the schools of Vietnam. So that's the curriculum that we wrote for the schools. And these are the 3 chapters of this curriculum. And you will, if you remember what I've described as the foundation of happiness, connection with oneself, connection with others and society, and connection with the environment and the planet. So living in harmony with ourselves, living in harmony with others and society, and living in harmony with nature. These are the 3 foundations of a happy life, and this is what we are teaching now in the schools. So this was like one of the first batch of teachers that were trained, and now in all these schools, for instance, mindfulness practice has become a standard practice at the beginning of every lesson. You see, it's just a normal state school. It's not a private school, it's nothing special, it's just a normal state school in Vietnam. Okay, so to end, because I would like to let a little bit of time so that we can have a few questions, I would like to ask you 2 questions. After hearing that, have you got any idea how you think you could enhance true happiness in your own life, either at work or at home, or both? And lastly, do you think gross national happiness could be applied in your country, Germany, or in your company, wherever you work? Or do you think that's just something for Bhutanese, for Asians, for Buddhists, but has nothing to do with us? So I'll end it with that so that we still have 13 minutes and 55 seconds for questions. Over to you. Do we have a mic for the audience? Thank you. Do we have a handheld mic so that people can ask questions? Okay, if we don't, then just shout. Okay.
So. Wer hat Fragen? Er ist jetzt hier. Wir haben ihn jetzt extra hier. Ihr könnt ihn alles fragen, was ihr wollt. Don't be shy. Just smile.
Sie können sogar auf Deutsch fragen.
Oh Mann, das hätten Sie mir ja vorher mal sagen können, dass Sie auch noch komplett Deutsch sprechen. Nein, bitte, er ist doch super sympathisch. Also,
ich habe gefragt, soll ich auf Englisch oder auf Deutsch machen? Man hat mir gesagt, auf Englisch. Habe ich auf Englisch gemacht.
Yeah, because it's a mixture of people from different parts of the world. So, wer möchte denn eine Frage stellen? Erste Reihe, perfekt, hier vorne gleich.
Ja, ich stelle mir das sehr schwer vor, dieses Konzept in einer Firma zu etablieren, in einem DAX-Konzern, wo eigentlich die Shareholder den Druck ausüben auf den Vorstand und der Vorstand gar nicht die Kraft hat, das umzusetzen. Wie stehen Sie zu so einem Unternehmen?
Ja. Haben Sie die Frage gehört? Ja, okay. Soll ich auf Deutsch antworten? Okay.
Ja.
Deutsch? Okay. Ja, es ist natürlich ein Spannungsfeld zwischen die Vorstellung, die man weitgehend noch heute hat, was ist das Ziel eines Firma, und zwar Profitmaximisierung, ja, und was ist die gesellschaftliche Aufgabe einer Firma. Im Grunde genommen, würde ich behaupten, ist die Idee, dass das Ziel einer Firma, eines Unternehmens, Profitmaximisierung ist eine falsche Vorstellung. Ein Unternehmen ist dazu da, Bedürfnisse zu erfüllen, menschliche Bedürfnisse zu erfüllen, Goods or Services, ja? Und natürlich, damit es das tun kann, muss es Profit machen, sonst wird es ja untergehen. Ja? Nun ist es aber so, dass heutzutage wir ja mit gewissen Herausforderungen konfrontiert sind, wie zum Beispiel die ökologische. Das bedeutet, wenn eine Firma nur auf Profit aus ist und sich nicht ihre ökologische Verantwortung mit einbezieht, wenn alle Firmen das machen, dann gehen wir ja wirklich eine Sackgasse, sind wir in einer Sackgasse. Denn es wird irgendwann nicht mehr genug Resources, wie sagt man Resources? Ressourcen geben, dass man überhaupt wirtschaftliche Tätigkeit weiterführen kann. Das ist das eine. Das zweite ist, es gibt mehr und mehr bewusste Konsumenten. Leute, die sagen, ich bin bereit, ein bisschen mehr zu zahlen und eher biologische, vielleicht Gemüse zu kaufen als chemisch behandelte Gemüse. Oder ich bin bereit, eine Tasche oder ein Stück Kleidung etwas teurer zu zahlen, aber dafür weiß ich, es sind keine Kinder ausgebeutet worden, es ist die Umwelt nicht zerstört worden und so weiter. Das bedeutet, die Konsumenten haben eine Entscheidungsmacht, zum Beispiel in der Autobranche. Bis vor kurzem, Autobauer, die wollten nichts wissen außer Diesel und Benzin. Heute wegen ein Bewusstseinswandel bei den Konsumenten, alle großen Autofirmen fühlen sich dazu gezwungen, Hybrid- und elektrische Autos. Ja? Volvo hat gesagt, in den nächsten 10 Jahren nur noch elektrische Autos. Das bedeutet, die Wirtschaft ist in einem Wandel. Und ich glaube, dieser Wandel, es hängt von uns ab, ob dieser Wandel zum Guten geht, das heißt mehr sozial verantwortlich, mehr ökologisch verantwortlich oder einfach Business as usual, egal was die Gesellschaft und unseren Planeten als einen Preis zahlen muss. Und meine Erfahrung ist, also zum Beispiel, ich habe Big Grim erwähnt. Big Grim ist eine listed company, ja? Ist eine listed company, das heißt, es hat Shareholders. Und es ging darum, den Shareholders zu zeigen, dass dieser Umschwung der Firma langfristig eigentlich auch wirtschaftlich positive Resultate haben würden. Und ich habe ja eine Liste von Unternehmen gezeigt, mit denen wir gearbeitet haben. Es muss natürlich als Voraussetzung in der Leadership, bei dem CEO, bei dem Vorstand und so, ein starker Wille da sein. Und dann die Fähigkeit, die Shareholders zu überzeugen. Aber auch bei Shareholders, es gibt ja mehr und mehr Investoren, die für grüne Investitionen oder sozial verantwortliche Investitionen suchen. Und das ist etwas, was in den letzten Jahren wirklich sehr gestiegen ist.
Weitere Frage, einmal hier, ach so, hier vorne, dann sind Sie dran. Danke.
Also, hallo. Glauben Sie, dass Unglücklichsein oder das Unglück immer etwas Negatives ist im Leben eines Menschen, oder ist eine Phase des Unglücklichseins nicht auch ein Antrieb oder ein Antrieb, etwas ändern zu wollen?
Absolut. Ja, danke für die Frage. Ja, es ist so, dass im Zusammenhang vom Bruttonationalglück sagen wir, dass eine Art Glück zu definieren ist unsere Fähigkeit, Leid zu verwandeln. Das heißt, nicht wahr? Wir stellen Glück nicht gleich mit dauernd lächeln, dauernd lachen, smiley, smiley und so weiter. Das ist nicht das, sondern als Menschen, wir werden sowieso mit Unglück oder mit Leid konfrontiert, weil wir krank werden, weil wir Menschen, die wir lieben, verlieren, weil wir alt werden, und so weiter, weil wir auch einmal sterben werden. Das heißt, es ist nicht so, dass wir uns ein Leben vorstellen können, das leidfrei wäre. Die Frage ist, sind wir vom Leid zerstört oder nehmen wir leidvolle Erlebnisse als eine Gelegenheit des Lernens und des Wachsens? Das ist der große Unterschied. Ja, wir können durch Leid so zerstört werden, dass wir wie drinnen untergehen. Oder wir können Leid so nehmen, dass wir merken, wir haben etwas daran zu lernen. Wir können daran wachsen. Und dann verwandelt sich das Leid in etwas Positives. Da war noch eine Frage.
Danke. Doch eine Frage dort in der Mitte.
Hallo, mein Name ist Isabel. Ich wollte gerne wissen, hat Bhutan eine spezielle Reisepolitik, wenn man das so hört von dem Land? Also ich würde da jetzt gerne hin. Was macht? Ich würde da sehr gerne hinreisen. Ja, ja. Aber ich glaube, es gibt Begrenzungen, habe ich gehört irgendwie. Was tue ich, um Ihr Land gut bereisen zu können, sodass ich auch Land und Leute kennenlerne? Denn das ist ja, was einen interessiert.
Ja, also Bhutan hat eine Reisepolitik und zwar ihr Slogan ist High Value, Low Impact. High Value, Low Impact. Das heißt, Bhutan hat sich dafür entschieden, nicht Massentourismus zu fördern, sondern weil es auch ein sehr kleines Land ist, gell? Und die hätten gar nicht die Ressourcen, sondern kleine Gruppen. Und wenn man nach Bhutan geht, muss man immer mit einem Führer, Reiseführer gehen. Man kann einfach nicht so wild durch die Gegend gehen. Es ist relativ teuer, aber auch nicht so teuer. Im Durchschnitt ist es $250 pro Tag, aber das ist alles inklusiv. Das heißt Hotel, Essen, Guide, Chauffeur, Auto, alles. $250 klingt viel, aber wenn Sie zusammenrechnen, was Sie dann ausgeben, wenn Sie gemütliche Ferien irgendwo machen, ist es selten sehr viel weniger als das. Gell? Und dann gibt es zwei Möglichkeiten. Entweder Sie gehen durch ein normales, es gibt ja bhutanesische Travel Agents, ja, die auch in Deutschland Vertretungen haben, und dann haben Sie einfach eine touristische Führung. Und Sie können entweder mehr auf Kultur oder mehr auf Natur oder ein bisschen von beidem haben. Oder Sie können Lehrreisen machen, wenn Sie zum Beispiel GNH lernen können. Und das GNH Center Bhutan organisiert das, wo es mehr dann eben über GNH zu lernen und so. Aber es ist an und für sich nicht besonders schwer, nach Bhutan zu kommen. Ja.
Danke. Wer hat noch eine Frage? Da drüben ist noch eine.
Hi, so my question is going to be in English because I can't speak German. You were talking about implementing this more like happy approach to companies, but you only gave examples of already huge companies. So do you think it can be applied to a startup? Because that would mean not playing by the rule of the current market. So do you think it could actually be an advantage to have a different approach, or would it make things harder for a startup?
Definitely. It doesn't have to do with size. You can absolutely implement GNH as even from the start, from the beginning, as the kind of direction you want to give to your company. Yesterday I met with a very interesting lady who is hosting the Circular Economy Berlin. So here in Berlin there's a house for circular economy. And I met with her and we shared, and she told me actually what she's doing and what we're doing with GNH is very, very similar. So the idea, how can you create economic value that is respectful of society, respectful of values, respectful of the environment, that doesn't destroy by adding so much more waste and so on and so forth, and that also has ethical values in the way you work with your own staff, so that the well-being of your own staff is really important, but also the well-being of all the stakeholders, customers and those that, and so on, all the stakeholders. So what you usually do is you would do a stakeholder mapping and then try to see with the different stakeholders how you implement these 9 domains of GNH. Well, it's a long process, I can tell it, but the short answer is yes, it's absolutely feasible. And I do believe that it can be a real competitive advantage for 2 reasons. One, because more and more young people, when they start working, they want to have a meaningful job. Not only earn money and have a stupid job. They want to have a meaningful. So if you have a company like that, you'll get the best. Because the best, those that everybody would like to have, they will go for the meaningful job, even if the pay is a bit lower. Secondly, you're going in the direction of the future, which is more and more people will wake up to the fact, more and more consumer, that just consuming blindly and stupidly and destroying the world is not something that can continue. We need to rethink what consumerism is about, what true prosperity is about, what really fulfills us. And I think companies that can go in this direction, they have a great future. So absolutely, just go for it.
Thank you so much. It's so motivating.
I think it's last one, maybe.
Yeah,
huh?
maybe one last question, short question and short answer.
Okay.
So, I hurry up. Ich möchte einmal sagen, herzlichen Dank. Es ist sehr interessant, wenn man das immer so auf YouTube und irgendwo und Dokus und irgendwas erfährt. Aber wenn man das nochmal in Person erfährt, ist das wirklich sehr, sehr viel wertvoller. Vielen Dank dafür.
Danke.
Die Frage, die ich habe, es kam eben schon auf im Zusammenhang mit DAX-Konzernen, mit der europäischen Kultur und mit den Problemen, die die europäischen Kulturen aktuell haben. Die entstehen ja sehr durch Egoismus. Das Bild, was Sie zeichnen, sehr von Altruismus, von Humanismus geprägt. Wie gehen Sie denn mit Kräften um in Ihrem eigenen Land, die dem entgegensteuern? Weil also es wird ja nicht nur gute Menschen in Bhutan geben, so schön es wäre.
Ja, es ist eine Volkserziehung, volkspädagogische Aufgabe, hier wie dort. Denn die Werte sind nicht, also Egoismus genauso wie Altruismus sind alles angelernte Sachen, das sind kulturelle Elemente. Und man kann, und deswegen sage ich, dass die Erziehung so wichtig ist, wenn man von vornherein auf diese Werte von Altruismus, Mitgefühl und so weiter baut, dann hat man auch die Chance, dass es in der Gesellschaft die Norm wird. Man hat mir gesagt, ich muss kurz antworten. Dankeschön.
Aber kurz, aber gehaltvoll. 1000 Dank, dass Sie heute hier sind und gesprochen haben beim Berlin Travel Festival. Dr. Vinh Tho, Dankeschön.
Danke.